Good morning to everyone. Good morning. I call our February 18th, the meeting of the Economic Development Authority to order. So glad everyone could make it, and considering a lot of things that's going on around us, I'm not even sure what season it is anymore. But we will get started on our agenda. Roll call.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Barber.
Here.
Ms. Drury. Mr. Kovacic.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mrs. Saunders-Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Smith. Mr. Smith.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Minutes. Everyone has reviewed the minutes. Are there any questions or corrections?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay.
And Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Financials.
Yes, sir. In your package, you have an assortment of various financial statements, and I'm going to focus on the statement of net position or balance sheet, and then the summary of the revenues and expenses, and then there's a lot of detail behind this. But through January 31st, 2020, the EDA had cash and temporary investments of $1,188,056.31. And I remind you all, just so you see that negative number, the city pays your ongoing expenses, and then periodically, for example, quarterly, the Development Authority will reimburse the city, so that we just keep track of it through these various accounts. There is land, capital asset on which a hotel sits of $1,205,660.65, and then property held for resale, $16 million, valued at $16,775,173.07. You have accounts payable, $9,100. You have a revenue note of $5,217,000, and then another amount due to the city, $43,000. So if you come down to unrestricted, it's the $12,006,000, which is really the value of your land held for resale. So in this case, I would focus on your cash as the amount you really have. Turning the page on the operating revenues, we have revenues of $117,200.21. And that looks like, that's operating expenses, $117,200.21, and then a non-operating income of various investment income, lease incomes, and cost of the debt issuance as a cost. So the net impact is between the change in net position of negative 260,218.56. And if there's any questions.
No questions? It appears, and we will carry those over for audit. Thank you, folks. Old business, Mr. Moore.
Yes, Chair. First matter of old business. You will recall that last month, or actually a couple months ago, the 2021 Budget Ad Hoc Committee was put together. Just want to report this morning that we will have a meeting on March the 16th to have that discussion just prior to your retreat on the 19th. That way, we go into the meeting knowing what the budget looks like, and then following the retreat, if there are any necessary changes or desired changes, then those changes could be made. So, but this is just a reminder that we are going to meet.
Any other questions? Okay, moving along.
Yes, sir. 710 Crawford Street. This is a property that the Economic Development Authority owns, and to make you aware, this is the property that is just out the window across the street from City Hall, the former location of 2 police administrative buildings. This property is currently under contract for a multifamily development on the property. We have worked with the developer to get this property developed and underway. However, as was discussed previously, there is a gap in what's necessary to move the property and the project forward. So in that regard, we did receive notification from the developer that they are withdrawing that application and withdrawing their offer for that property. We did receive that. We did acknowledge that. We want to let the board know that we have received that information. We have worked on processing their deposit, going back to them. I will tell you that we do have additional interest in this property that we cannot go into currently because we do not have an LOI in front of us right now, but we are and have heard from another developer, and we will bring that forward as we receive it. Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. Will they get their full deposit back, or will we?
Yes, they are within their due diligence period on the time frame. We verified that as we work through the process. We worked with them over the last almost year and a half, 2 years maybe, to get this project moved forward. And the project, it wasn't that the project, for all intents and purposes, was not a good project. It was really that as the project grew from I think it was originally 63 units to almost 113 units. There was a gap there. So, in trying to make sure those numbers work on everyone's side, it was mutually agreed upon. So, again, as we move forward with the property, any new developments or developments in the property, we will bring forward to you all.
So they actually planned themselves into the gap by adding those additional.
You know, I think to keep it simple, you know, you want to maximize the property and maximize the use as best as possible. And sometimes, yeah, when you go through the planning process, things can happen. So, next item, if you don't mind, Chair, 387 Quebec Street. I'll let Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Miller really touch on this, but we discussed this briefly. This is a property that is in a floodplain. We felt necessary to acquire, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Baldwin, if that's okay, to discuss where we are and what we've done.
Yeah, certainly, and I'll do my piece of it. As I think we mentioned at the last meeting, the property is important for us in terms of stormwater management. It's Chesapeake. It's got you don't see that on here, but the Chesapeake Bay buffers and flood zone are on this piece of property. We had heard there's been some developer interest in a couple of these sporadic lots in this area out here in Sugar Hill, and the city owns probably, I'm going to say 80% of the lots back there. It's not a very good place to start having, you know, a handful of homes get built out there. Difficult location, old infrastructure. And so cases like this where there's a stormwater management value to the property, it seemed like an opportunity since the property was in tax sale for the city to acquire it. And we worked through the EDA, Brian Donahue, Jeff Miller, I'm not sure who else from the attorney's office, you know, worked on this thing at auction. We were successful at acquiring the property at auction, and this will be reimbursed to the EDA from the city's stormwater management fund. So I don't know if you wanted any other details on that. We were very pleased. We're looking, there's that piece across the street at 320 Quebec. That's owned by PRHA, and we'll be having some conversations with them, in fact, this afternoon on that piece over there. The rest of that block, for example, you see 320 Quebec, all those other parcels are city-owned.
Yeah, just to add to that, Mr. Smith was the bidder at auction, did an excellent job, got it for $31,000, which is about 10-12 less than the assessed value of the property. EDA's money has been transferred and is being held in escrow. We have to have a court hearing because it's a tax sale. You always have to have a court confirm the sale. That hearing, I believe, is February 28th. After that, the closing will take place. EDA will get the property. We'll work on the reimbursement of city funds. I believe we were talking we could use stormwater funds since it is a stormwater project. When you pay your real estate taxes, you also pay a stormwater fee, and you can use that money for stormwater projects. So we'll work on reimbursing EDA and get everything closed out in early March.
Very good, thank you.
Next is going to be new business, as we discussed. Perpetually on your agenda, you will have this item, the project update. No real project update other than I'll say a couple things. One, we will speak briefly, or I will speak briefly tonight at the community meeting that council is holding to briefly talk about our numbers for last year. We will take a deeper dive into those numbers with council on the 25th of February at their work session on that Tuesday. And then also, just as a quick update, I think they had something on the news about it this morning, but we are in crossover for the General Assembly, and I have been in Richmond several times over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, working with the legislature there to move forward the casino legislation, and that is moving rather quickly. We won't go into a lot of details this morning, but just some high-level things. Still working on the tax rate for the state, looking at certain things like the gray machines that you see in every 7-Eleven, pizza parlor, and barbershop now, and the legality of those. And then at the same time, just understanding the process as far as how it will be regulated. At this point, it will be regulated by the Lottery Board. But that legislation is moving forward. The bills, both bills passed, the one in the Senate and as Senate Bill 36 and House Bill 4. Again, they've gone to crossover, so what that means is the Senate will receive the House bill, the House will receive the Senate bill. They'll each make some changes. They'll go in a room somewhere, work it out, and hopefully we'll have legislation. But we will keep you updated. We should really know some more, I would think, by the time we go to our retreat. We should be at the end of what would be a regular session. So that's just a quick update.
Do they feel like everything will go through so that it'll be a referendum in November, or is it later?
At this point, everything looks very promising, very possible. Again, still got to work out tax rates. But yes, looks like everything will move forward at this point. Well, I'm going to speak positively about it to the need for a referendum in November. And that is required by the legislation for each locality of the 5 localities that could receive a casino. Again, Portsmouth, Norfolk, Bristol, Danville, and Richmond. All 5 would have to have a referendum. So, in November. And that again, without going into a lot of detail, that may tweak a little bit for one of the localities. Not Portsmouth. Portsmouth will have to be in November. But that's a quick update.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? Okay.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the local incentives program update. Again, an item that will be perpetually on the agenda for this meeting. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Brian Donahue.
Good morning. We've had a few updates and a little bit of activity since your last meeting that we wanted to brief you on and make you aware of. Again, you can see the prior year program funding is identified on this slide. But we're really focusing on the current fiscal year 2020. We've had a couple of grants, I think, that have been added to the list, which were administrative approvals over the last month. So currently, we have a balance of about $108,000 available in the program for the fiscal year. Mr. Moore, if we go to the next slide. So this is the full listing of where we are as of January 31st. Just 19 grants that we have awarded. The last 2 were for Jumpstart Creative Childcare. It's a daycare, child care center on High Street, just across from Maryview. We are assisting with interior build-out and a facade improvement grant there. I believe that they're close to wrapping up, and Mr. Smith has been working with them, so we should be closing that out here very soon. You'll notice we have a number of these grants that are complete, and we've been dispersing funds as well, so you will continue to see that updating over the course of the year as we close those out. One other item that we had on the agenda is 450 Dinwiddie Street. That's United Methodist Church. We provided a grant to them in 2017. Monumental, of course, had a fire later that year, pretty substantial fire, which required really a full renovation and restoration of the church itself. The grant that was awarded was in the amount of $21,470. That included exterior painting. As part of the restoration efforts, their insurance settlement covered that work. However, there were other items that were necessary that were not covered by insurance that they have performed work items on the exterior of the property. And again, this was a facade improvement grant. That work included repairs to the sidewalks, which were damaged as part of the firefighting efforts out there. A new fence was also needed to be put in, and then they restored a number of the brass plaques on the exterior of the property. So it amounted to about $13,800 or so worth of work. And that's additional work beyond what we had originally reviewed. So they're asking for consideration of that for the grant. Again, the grant was $21,470. They had $13,800 in expenses, so we would be potentially covering half of that amount, so much lesser amount than what was approved originally. We did want to bring that before you for consideration. That is a change, so we just wanted to let you know that that's what had happened and to get your concurrence on that.
And if I may quickly, the reason we're bringing this before you, typically, again, we'd look at the grant was approved for X. It was approved for painting. This was some extreme circumstances, and previous board members had advised the group that, we would work with them as the board would work as best as possible with them. So with that said, we brought this to your attention. Staff sees and understands the desire to have this paid out. It is a lesser amount than what we paid out. What I would say, however, is that while they would be eligible for $21,000 for the property, or would have been, we think that as the decision was made in 2018 to not have tax-exempt properties eligible for the program, if you were to pay this out, this roughly almost $7,000, that would be it for the property going forward. And again, I bring that up because, for example, I'm just going to use this bill. I'm going to use 200 High Street. 200 High Street would be eligible for $25,000. If they used $5,000 now, they'd still be eligible for $20,000 later. Because this would then be a building that would be not eligible going forward, you could give special consideration because of the circumstances. However, staff would recommend, again, going forward, that is it. But because you do not allow currently churches to have, and everything else has been covered.
What's the precedent for grants to nonprofits?
Again, you were previously allowed because the grants were only in downtown, and because these churches were considered, or these buildings and structures were considered to be contributing to the overall character of downtown. Not saying they're not now, but for the overall program. Again, in 2018, when they made this citywide, however, the decision was made to not include, to not include nonprofits, churches, things of that nature, because of the non-tax generating properties. So, Again, this was done prior to that decision being made. And again, previous board members stated, we would work with them as best we could until this was resolved. So that's why we're bringing it at this point. Unless legal can tell me, I don't know if there's a precedent by fulfilling the grant that was approved in 2017. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, as far as the nonprofit, it's somewhat similar to the deed restrictions that are put in place when EDA or PRHA or an entity like that conveys property for development. There's usually a restriction that for 15 years it won't be conveyed to a tax-exempt entity. The reasoning being that we're in this to generate tax revenue for the city budget. So I think the change that was made a year or two ago was based on that logic.
But this decision was made prior to that.
Correct.
You mean the prior time they got the money was made prior to the change?
Yes.
So this would be considered a new request? That's what you're grappling with, this grant?
We're saying it's a different request because, again, what was approved was painting. They were in the process, literally, of painting this building, the outside of this building. And the board granted about $21,000 to finish off. They had already approved previously, years before, $4,000. They were coming back for the rest. Then, subsequently, while going through this process and after the approval, and they had scaffolding up and everything, the church caught fire. So, church caught fire. There was extreme damage there. They've gone through, and the repairs have been made, including painting. However, the insurance company covered that. For all intents and purposes, there's still grant money out there that they were approved for, but it was for painting. So they are asking, we were approved for $21,000 to paint. We did have some things that were not covered under insurance, but are still facade improvements.
Okay.
So because of that, we like to ask for those improvements to be covered, which is a lesser amount. It's $13,000, which is the amount. You'd only cover half of that, which is roughly, I think it's like $6,800. But because it is not what you approved, staff felt it best that we bring it to the board than just pay it out.
I think it would be considered an amendment under very unique circumstances.
Yeah, and for that reason, I would vote to do that because you're saying this was money that would have been appropriated to them. There is no deadline of which that money had to be used by, and it fell before the new clause of not doing. So I would say we should.
And it's a lesser amount.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's.
And-
We never paid them anything before
Right.
Not off of that, not on that, no,
Not
no,
that- not that-
no.
because of the virus.
Correct.
And so it is our decision if
Yes.
we want to.
Yeah.
So that's why it's before us.
I move that we accept the recommendation. You need a
Well,
motion?
Why don't you motion?
It can be a consensus, or do we have to?
I think we need to get, because of the circumstances,
Okay.
get a recommendation, get a,
Motion to
Motion
approve an
to-
amendment
yeah.
to the grant.
I move that we accept the recommendation of the development committee that we transfer those monies to them with the changes as a result of the fire.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
all right, Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Kovacic,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders-Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. So we will process those as usual and send those out.
Okay. Thank you. Next item.
Moving forward, joint retreat topics. Again, you all are aware that the retreat is March the 19th. That is a Thursday. The retreat will be held at TCC, starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, running to approximately 3 o'clock. I say approximately because it's all up to you all. We could end earlier. Just want to say that. But we have received topics at this point from only 2 members on this board. Love for everyone to participate. Send us some topics to discuss at the retreat. You will receive an agenda for the retreat, and on that agenda will be the broad topics that everyone is kind of the subtopics that we will discuss based off what you all send us. So we would like, complete participation, and we're asking this of both boards. So if you could just forward those to Lee in our office, and then we will compile them and put them together.
Okay, one thing that I didn't submit anything because I think there was enough to go for several retreats. But one thing, since there's so many new members, that there would be an item on there that we could kind of overview of EDA and its purpose, authority, and how it works. And
Yes.
that would be helpful for the new members coming in if we put that on the front end of the meeting.
Okay.
Without any objections from anyone.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
We'll make sure we do that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions about the retreat? Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, the next item says PTAC funding. We have with us this morning Ms. Monique McWhite. Ms. McWhite is from the Old Dominion University.
640 North.
Oh, I'm moving ahead. Being mindful of you all's time. 640 North Street. Is that on here? 640 North Street, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Miller to be more precise.
Okay, this is a cleanup item from 1995. So
That's exactly why he's
very
here.
patient with it. EDA, back when it was IDA, back in the 70s and early 80s, often would issue what was called revenue bonds. And these were small-scale bonds that would be sold to a bank. The bank would get tax-exempt interest, so it would let a developer get a better interest rate, make it easier to finance projects. And the developer of 640 North Street, which is a small medical office up on Effingham Street, or near Effingham Street there, entered into this program back in 1979. And as part of the program, the developer, who owned the property at the outset, would transfer it to IDA and take back a ground lease. So the developer would be on the property, build out the project, and when the bonds were paid off, it was automatic that the developer was supposed to get a deed back from IDA for the property. And so this started in 1979. The developer built the office building. The loan was paid off. The bond was paid off in 1995 under the terms of the lease that were recorded. The developer should have gotten a deed within 30 days from IDA conveying the property back. That may have happened, and it just didn't get recorded. We don't really know what happened, but what's clear is that there's no deed in the land records from IDA to the developer. Developer paid taxes on the property from 1995 on. It's been treated in all respects as if the developer did own the property. Now there's a new medical provider looking to come into the property. The title company has raised a title issue. The new provider contacted Mr. Moore, and they need a quitclaim deed from EDA, just conveying the property over, as should have been done back in '95. And we have a resolution prepared. I think it was sent out in your packet.
Yep.
And we're asking that you adopt that, and Mr. Smith can sign a quitclaim today.
So moved. Roll call vote.
Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Mr. Gavache,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.
Now we can go to, I think.
Yes.
Okay. PTAC funding. And I want to make sure I say this name right. Procurement Technical Assistance Center. That center is actually part of Old Dominion University and their Strong School of Business. And we have with us this morning Miss Monique McWhite, who heads up this organization and has been a great partner with the economic development, with the Economic Development Office. As with any organization, there are funding needs and funding requests. Certainly this board, and we'll talk about this after her presentation, but this board has participated in this program several years ago. But we'd like Ms. Monique McWhite to provide some insight and some information about the program, and then discuss why she is here this morning. So, Ms. McWhite.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. My name's Monique McWhite. I'm with the Procurement Technical Assistance Center. We're funded in part through DLA. DOD issues the funds. They go to DLA that administers the program. We currently are part of the Crater Procurement Assistance Center in Petersburg. We're a subrecipient. We're currently going on our own to do a standalone PTAC, even though we've been in existence for over 10 years. So since we do a lot of programming, we have a very robust program. As Robert can attest, we do quite a bit of workshops. There is no cost to any of these businesses, these small businesses. And basically, we're in place to help industry suppliers connect with government buyers, connect the two. So government contracting is very difficult. That's why we're here, to help them with their coach with government contracting. If somebody's going after a contract and they have a question with regard to where do I go, where do I start, if they're going to work with a city, they need to be an EVA, they need to get their SWAM certification. We help them with that process, who to connect with, who's buying what they sell, market research. Also, with the federal government, they have to be in system of award management. What set-asides do they can get, how they market those, that's key. That is a differentiator. That is added on, bolster to what they do. So when we coach them, try to say, what do you do? What's your value? How do you solve the problem? So basically, we answer phone calls, we get in front of them at their business, or they come to us. We have workshops. And I'm sorry, I'm just a little nervous. It's not easy asking for money because, again, there is a cash match component. And Virginia Beach in the past, Norfolk, Newport News, has helped us with that. And I'll be quite frank, Portsmouth has not, since I've been here. And I've been in this position since 2012. But that's why we're asking, because we're in a dire straits right now because it's a very time-sensitive thing, because we're putting the proposal together now to submit to DLA. We have to have the money we need $60,000, but not all from Portsmouth. We're getting it from Virginia Beach, we're getting it from Newport News, really you can go into a bank to actually help. And a small business has also given me the program, 2,500, Barclay Group. Also Task, who I'm on the board of Tidewater Association for Service Contractors. You know, everybody's trying to pony up. And that's why I'm here. I'm asking you guys, in order to keep the doors open, we need the support. And, you know, we talked to Robert and Jessica in the group that we want to come and do quarterly workshops to come out and get the show on the road. But I need funding to do that. And and I have a list of companies that I work with. As a matter of fact, what we do daily, I have another Chris Sobel who works with me. Every day, we take 2 businesses in the morning, each city that we work with, and we pull opportunities that are conducive. What do they do? Based on their content in SAM, based on their content in the Dynamic Small Business Search, that's market research. We pull that opportunities as sources sought. We send it to them every day because we want to keep them engaged. In Portsmouth, as a matter of fact, Barbara Moore, SMK Center down on Queen Street, sent her an email last night. She emailed me at 3:53 this morning thanking me because I notified her of opportunities and also of the new rule with the micro business purchase threshold that was $3,500 per transaction. Well, right now it's not in the regs. They upped it to $10,000. That's a lot of money for a small business. Purchase card order. The only way she can go after it, or any other small business, is if they update their SAM, their Dynamic Small Business Search, because the government has a new search tool that scrubs for just keywords. Right now, she has a capabilities narrative, and I'm pointing her out because she's the most recent. So this is a big deal for a small business. This is money in the pipeline. Not only getting on a MAC, a multiple award task order, that's for a team, but also to get these smaller, more palatable pieces of work that they can get instant cash, instant past performance. That's a big deal for a small business. And a lot of people don't know it because it's not in the regs. But the caveat is the business has to be found. They have to go through that scrubbing tool and be found that way because the FAR is not updated. But speed of government, right? So, also, I just met Marco, don't ask me to say his last name, with PMA Solutions with IncuHub. Met him at Task, helping him with government contracting. We're constantly finding new ways to tap into businesses in the area. And I'll be honest with you, when I do a data search and dynamic small business search, and I pull up, for instance, I just recently did this about last quarter for Portsmouth, it really saddens me when you come back and says, can't be delivered because they're out of business, probably out of business. That's why we're here. That's why we're at ODU. We're trying to make a change. We're trying to make a difference. And I can only do that with your help. So, and also, do I have a few more minutes? Or, okay. When we do a workshop, and I have one tomorrow, for pricing, it doesn't cost the business anything. And we have it over at ODU. We have them all over. Slover, we're going to have them here if if things work out. But we try to, you can't have a workshop with, you have nascent, you have GD guys who have been doing it for 30 years. Nobody gets anything out of it. So we break it up into beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So when we market these workshops, so if you're nascent, if you've never done a government contract, or maybe you did a couple, you want to go to that. You want to be with your peers so you can ask questions, network, get to know what's going on and who's doing similar work. Partnering. Then you have the intermediate, then you have the advanced. That way, if I'm giving a presentation and I'm talking to a nascent or startup or somebody that's just beginning to do government contracting, I don't want them to get discouraged. You can't, how can you talk to a point when you got some other people that have been doing it for 30 years? So that's why we tried to change it up. No other PTAC's doing this. Also, I'm on the board of the TAS, Toward Association for Service Contractors for Programs, Communications, and Sponsorships. I told Jeff Bruner if I miss another meeting, I'm not going to be able to time to do my full-time gig. But what we do is, because of my relationships with the government, we're having industry days once a month. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but prior to that, we only had NIWC and Coast Guard. Now we're having NOAA this month, next week. That's getting procurement people, KOs, people in procurement, talking about their forecast, meeting these small businesses. And we're having matchmaking. I mean, that is a big deal for a small business, because if you talk to any of your small businesses, you ask them, how government contract, and they're like, I don't want to deal with it, nobody's calling me back, I can't get any traction. It's frustrating because it's a long game. It's a long game. This is not something you do haphazardly. This is something you give it your all, or you have somebody in your business to focus on government contracting, because again, it isn't easy. Go on the website. There's so many for-profit scammers out there. To do what I do, to register somebody in SAM, some people charge $1,500. That's ridiculous for a small business. They don't have that money. They need to, I'm sorry, am I bothering you? Anyway, I don't want to take up your time. I really need to, I just want to answer your questions. Again, like I can send this to you. I have it on a thumb drive, but emails that I send to people, like those emails that I send every day, Chris and I, we don't put that in the data in our system. That's just admin work, too much. Only if we're really making a change, like answering somebody's question with their CVE package, or I'm having a hard time. I got denied my SWAM certification because I've been a woman-owned small business for 10 years. Now they finally read my bylaws for the SWAM certification. They denied this is an actual case, by the way. denied my SWAM certificate, my woman piece.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from,
Yeah, I've got several questions there. From what I understand from your presentation, you're asking us to help provide financial assistance so that you can provide the match money for a federal grant. May I ask, what is the federal grant? How much is the match?
The match that we're looking for, again, is $60,000, but that's not all from one locale. That is based on, the government's going to pay based on a distress and non-distressed amount. The government pays a portion of that. The rest is responsibility of the support from the locales.
What is the total grant amount?
The total grant amount right now is $178 and change.
Okay, and you're asking for $60,000 from amongst all the localities?
Yes.
How many localities are currently participating?
7.
What are those localities?
Well, 7 that I represent, but the ones that are actually ponying up, and I don't have the dollar amount, but they agreed. Virginia Beach, Newport News, Norfolk. Task is Tidewater Association for Service Contractors, and a bank.
Okay. How much of the match do you have committed so far?
Right now, I have $2,500 from Barclay Group, and I have, as a matter of fact, I have $1,000 from RQ Construction in Carlsbad, California, because we have small business outreach. I've been helping them with when they're going after work. They're looking for small businesses, set-asides, and they know that the people that we work with have been vetted, so we hold those at ODU. So they offered up $1,000.
I'm trying to determine what your gap is in what you have committed in your match money and what is remaining.
Oh, right now I have $3,500. The rest is unknown.
Unknown. Okay, so there's a big gap. What is your caseload in Portsmouth?
Caseload right now is I'm working with 53 businesses.
In Portsmouth? Okay.
Yes.
any other questions from members?
Just to follow up on that, 53 in Portsmouth, what would that size look like in Norfolk or Virginia Beach?
Virginia Beach is about 250 something, and Norfolk, 3 something. Norfolk and Virginia Beach are the top 2. I can get you actual numbers, but those resonate with me, those numbers.
I would, I'm sorry. You said you could get us that information. I would like to know the list of businesses that you have worked with in the past.
I have them here. I can get that to you, yes.
Mr. Barber, you had something else?
This is a question of timing. When is the application submitted, due?
The deadline is April 1st. Yeah. The end of the grant period is July 31st. So after, it's April 1st is when it's due.
Let me ask, so how many of these organizations are operating in this area? You mentioned that...
Every state has one. There is some overlap with cities. GMU is statewide. This is a regional program that we run. But GMU, most of all their counselors, as a matter of fact, are part-time. And I believe Joe Moore is here in this area, and Linda Owen and CeCe Cotton. But again, part-time.
And your particular organization, how many do you have staff?
2. We're full-time.
2?
Yeah. And all of our workshops are free. We do not charge a nominal fee. And again, we do the beginner, intermediate, and advanced. We do the small business outreach where people primes are looking that have work or looking for small businesses to meet with their estimators. We do the reverse industry day. This is, connecting the businesses with the government.
So, but you said over 53 in Portsmouth and over 200, and 2 people manage that?
Yep. That's why we do workshops, because it's one to many. And we meet with them when we're there, and it's not easy. Before, it was just me. I've been doing this since 2012. It's been a challenge. That's why I've been doing so many workshops. And to me, it's not metrics. It shouldn't be a chop shop. It should be actually talking to people, answering their questions, guiding them where they should go, who they should speak to, how they should, making business decisions, being strategic about what they do, not marketing to everybody. These are basic commonsensical things that a lot of people don't know if you're not a business owner, or if you want to do government contracting, because you only get one shot at it. You don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing. So it's really been a challenge. And again, it's just like a business. You have funding, you're one person, you want to grow, but you have to have the funding in order to grow. And luckily, DLA saw the need. They gave us a bucket of money to hire someone else.
Okay. And we have history with this?
You do. You have, back in 2010 and 2011, you all each time gave $5,250. You have not participated since that time. Staff brought this to your attention because you had previous history with this group, as well as this is a resource for businesses both in Portsmouth and within the region. So opportunities. So we wanted to bring that to you this morning, also because you do have a budget discussion coming up with the committees. So if it's something that you were to look to move forward with, you would have to let the ad hoc committee know anyway.
So she says we have till April 1st, so we need that information so that we can make a decision since we have till April 1st.
Yeah,
That's submitted. That's the package that's submitted to DLA. I need it before then.
So, I mean, what's drop dead?
I need a letter of commitment. I don't need an actual check at this point. I need a letter of written commitment of funding to put in the package. Basically, I need this signed in a promise, a commitment letter, so I can put this into the proposal package. And that's the deadline for the proposal to get to DLA. So this needs to be done prior.
Okay, so we do have some time to deliberate on this, because this is kind of hitting, we have quite a few new members here, and this is kind of hitting us a little off guard. So we need some time to digest this, and if you can provide that information to us as soon as possible, we can submit it to our budget committee. And
I certainly will. I'll do that today.
Bill?
Having worked in the industry and navigated through the government processes for procuring bids, I can tell you that that is something that could be a resource for local businesses, because it is a maze if you're not familiar with doing business with the government.
Yes.
And that includes the federal as well as the federal's even worse, but the state as well.
Right.
So I could see where that would be quite an asset.
No doubt, no doubt. Elizabeth?
I'm going to piggyback on Mr. Barber's question, because I'm a little confused. You're trying to get 60,000. You only have 3,500 committed thus far. Where are Norfolk and Virginia Beach in this?
They are.
And
I
you
don't
only
know
have
the amount.
35. You don't know what their amount is. That's what I was. I'm thinking you only have 3,500 and Norfolk and Virginia Beach are in there.
I do this every year, and I build these relationships with the EDAs. I mean, I'm a known commodity. Maybe not to all of you, but to most people. This is something there's always an ask. And Portsmouth, I've worked, tried to get in front of Patrick Small, and that was, and when Chuck was here, it's just never, I know you had your problems, so it just never worked out when I was in this position. But now I really do I'm asking because I need to help you guys.
So what would a normally Norfolk, who's twice the size we are and has 5 times the number of clients, what would be their level of participation?
Typically $60,000 to $75,000. The last time was $22,500. Yeah, and this time not confirmed, but 30 now. So we're waiting on that.
Just trying to get a range of scale there.
Yeah, fair enough.
Have you been able to track the number of companies that you have worked with that have actually got contracts?
I have. Yeah, well, that is, let me like piggyback off that. When we say help them get a government contract, again, we're coaching them. We don't write the proposal for them. We help them, provide them the opportunities just to help them along. We work with them along that path. Like who you should, doing the market research. What NAICS code should you use, how to present your business, working with the capability statement. It's a continuing process. It's not like we write their proposal
No, I
form.
understand that. But
We do the sanity check. But to answer your question, yes, we follow up with them. They follow up with us. We can go into open source, FPD, Federal Procurement Data System, to track. So we can give you detail.
Add one more thing. What would help if there were some testimonials from people that you have helped coach, train, whatever, through the process. I think that would help your ask tremendously.
Okay, and are there any other questions? And my recommendation would be that we would get that information and pass it along. So will you pass it along to
Robert?
Robert?
I certainly
And he
will.
can get it to the committee, and then we'll try to, get with you as soon as we can.
I appreciate it.
Is that okay with?
Yes. I'd like to see the information as well.
Okay.
And I will get it.
We'll distribute it through Lee. As soon as we receive it, we'll distribute it to the members through Lee.
Okay. And thank you very much. I think you do a tremendous work with two people. That's awesome.
And that's precisely why we're going after this cooperative agreement, because we're kind of pigeonholed. We need to grow. We're not going to be able to do it this round because it's the first year. We can only do it for 1 year, and we don't want to the cash match requirements a hindrance. So we're going to wait till the next year to hire more staff.
Okay. Thank you for coming.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me.
Next item.
All right, next item. The Virginia Industrial Development Authorities Institute, or VIDA, which is typically a very informative event for our new members. I believe Chair and Vice Chair, you all went last year, along with a couple members from PPIC. We certainly suggest, I don't want to say require, but suggest that our new members attend. It is May the 19th and the 20th in Roanoke. It is something that we reimburse you for the cost. So you would set up your hotel, and I think the EDA pays for the fees. I will double check that with Lee, but we will reimburse you for the hotel and such. Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Saunders Smith, and Mr. Neil Barber. I think you're the only three that have not attended. Okay, so we have 4 members. Now, this is when legal kicks in, because 4 members attending that event is fine as long as you do not discuss business, correct?
Yeah, I mean, more than 2 of you cannot discuss business at the same time together, but you can all go to the conference.
Yeah.
So we will put a monitor on each one of you.
Exactly. We'll know.
To make sure that doesn't happen.
We'll know exactly what's going on.
That date is not good for me, so I couldn't go.
Okay. And if you cannot attend this year, we just suggest it be something that you go to. And I think from a testimonial standpoint, kind of speaking to what the councilman stated, I don't want to speak for you all, but I think you all found it very informative from a standpoint of what the expectations should be of a board member. Mr. Barber, you may in your past have been to something similar to this already, but we will have this information out. I think Lee sent this out with the packet. If you can attend, let us know. We'll work out the details with Lee.
And he's right. It was very beneficial, the networking and meeting others from around the state and talking to them sidebar as to the kinds of things they're dealing with, and they're posing questions to us too. But it's just a wealth of information that it's overwhelming that you get, legalities and financial, and I mean, just it was really worth.
Yeah, I agree. I learned quite a bit from the meetings, particularly what cities that were about our size, Danville, I remember specifically, and some of the work they have been doing to attract businesses was very informative, and things that we could use right here in the city of Portsmouth, I thought.
Okay.
I'm going to look into it, yes.
Okay. We have a need to go into a closed session.
Okay. Moving along, we'll entertain the motion for a closed meeting. I want to read? Oh, I think you got one right.
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A-3 for the purpose of discussing acquisition of or disposition of publicly held real property interest where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding 3335 Victory Boulevard.
Need a second.
Roll call.
Need a second.
Second.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Barber. Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Mr. Kovacic.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
All right, we are in closed session.
Only public business matter lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Roll call.
Need a second.
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 Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
We're in open session.
Okay. Now,
With the young lady who made the presentation a few minutes ago, can you make sure in the information that she gives you that it's a little bit more detailed? Because if you've given money in the past, how did it benefit specifically?
certainly.
Okay.
Certainly. And again, so that you all know, staff brought this. We have worked with that group in the past. We worked with the Old Dominion Strom School of Business regularly. We don't want to make decisions for you all, especially if you all were participating members at some point of what they were doing. So we want to give her the opportunity to come in, present. Then you all have the opportunity to discuss it at the budget meetings, and then you can go from there. But yes, we will make sure it's as detailed, and we have asked that it be as detailed as possible, Portsmouth specific,
Correct.
on what is going on, and also compared to the region.
And, have you had any discussion at the regional level about, financially participating amongst all the localities?
We've had discussion, and there's been discussion.
So if she's asking for this grant money, she's asking to not be a part of the Old Dominion system, to be on her own?
I would put it as similar to SBA. We have the small business folks that come in. We normally do an in-kind. We don't normally give money. We normally do an in-kind so they can come in and utilize our space for free. And we quantify that and everything else. They are looking, yes, to stand up as a separate organization. They utilize that via grant funding. They are part of ODU. How that undoes itself and they stand up, that part I'm not clear on. What I am clear on is that it is a resource that our businesses have used. How many exactly and all that information, we're still gathering all of that information. Could it be valuable? Yes. But should you all participate financially? I'll leave that up to you. All have done it in the past. 8 years ago, 9 years ago.
So you don't want to make a recommendation?
I'll say this: we still need to see the same information as you all need to see. You all have asked for that information. We have asked for that information. We will get that information. After we get that information, I think that we all can make an informed decision on where we need to be.
Okay.
You know, since it's public dollars, we don't only need the information. I think we should see their budget as well as their financials, quite frankly.
I'm just a little put back by all of this that they say they do with two people. I mean, how can you manage?
Yeah, that's a thin.
Dealing with the federal
staff.
government, everybody knows, you know, and they're giving them in direction and instruction, and I mean that's overwhelming to me. The thought of that is overwhelming, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's not. I agree. It's not enough information yet.
I would anticipate we'll have this information rather quickly. As soon as we receive it, we'll send it to you all. Please, no discussion. Count my legal here. Let's try not to do chain emails. If you have a question, please send it to myself or Lee, and we'll try to get the information out. But no discussion via email, if that makes any sense. Am I right?
Yeah, that'd be good. You can come back at the retreat and
And we can
discuss
have the
it.
discussion, yeah. Just because you don't want to look like you're discussing business. That's all.
No email decision-making.
That's all. That's all.
But we don't even know each other that well.
I know. On camera, he said.
Okay. that requires development of relationships.
I understand that. I'm with you.
Takes a little time
That's
for
why we're
that.
having a retreat. That's why we're having a retreat. But no, we have no further. Oh, well, I do have one thing. Just quickly, along those lines, we are having so your retreat is on the 19th. On the 17th of March, we are having an incentives workshop. That's all Portsmouth specific. We try to put this on once a year so that individuals know and businesses know what incentives we have here in the city, i.e. you all's grant program. We have new incentives now, like the Port Host Community grant. Certainly the port has some incentives, things of that nature. So we will have that meeting on March the 17th, which is that Tuesday. That too will be at TCC. And that's about, I think we did, 9 to 8:30 to 12:30. And normally, Ms. McWhite is there to talk about what her staff does from that standpoint. But it's very important because we talk about everything from enterprise zone, everything that we have, so that the businesses know that we are here for them as a staff.
And I'd like to also make everyone aware, I have asked staff to make us aware of ribbon cuttings that occur in the city, so that, and it's not mandatory that you attend, but it's just optional. But it's also good information to know when new businesses are open up, and if you could, you can feel free to go out, to participate.
Like Petite Sweets on
Petite
High
Sweets.
Street next
Yes.
door to Love's Scouser is adorable.
Yes.
And delicious. It's
Yes.
tiny little,
What time do they open?
I don't know. I mean, everything is
Open at 11?
single servings, cupcakes and little jars full
So
of
I couldn't
goodies
go by there
inside.
after the meeting and grab something sweet.
No, but
Yeah.
you could grab a cup of coffee at the coffee shop and wait until they open.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really
You should
cute.
never ask
Stuff.
But I was
economic
gonna,
development folks. We have
you
an
know,
answer for you.
experience the new business.
Yeah. No, but 11, they were
Great
Councilwoman
little
was there.
boxes
Yes.
with a insert inside, so if you want to buy 4 or 6 cupcakes, they're not rolling around your car when you drive off.
Right, you're making me hungry.
They're very thoughtful.
And they literally, it's called Petite Sweets because they don't make anything larger than like this. So you might come out with a big box, but that's because you have like 20 cupcakes.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know. But no, we'd like for you all to attend. Historically, this board has not been as active. But again, we'd like to change that. And we'd like, when I say active, I'm talking as far as the ribbon cuttings and things. We'd like for you all to be there. You all are vital to the business community continuing to grow and expand, and them seeing you there along with council, that's a big deal for them. You really, until you're there, you don't realize how important they feel
shaking council's hand, shaking the mayor's hand, taking a picture. They like those things, and I think that's great for
And you get
business
free,
morale.
free stuff, free food and everything.
Now, I say on camera, we didn't get free stuff at.
We all bought our cupcakes.
I made.
Oh, wow.
We can't make that
Not
a
even
requirement.
a sample?
No samples. I tried it. Trust me, I tried it. And that's an
That was
inside
good
joke.
business.
But yeah, we tried it. It's a change. I changed the business model. But no, we will make sure you all are made aware of these things.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well,
no further business.
we're ready to adjourn if there aren't any other objections or any other concerns. Meeting's adjourned.